What are your most common questions in regards to trauma? Hi everyone, this is Yolanda Renteria. I'm a trauma therapist and I'm here to show you why your reactions, your emotions, and your thoughts make sense when you understand them. Okay, so I am here to answer some questions submitted by people who follow me on Instagram, and I hope that you find this video helpful and hopefully it brings more answers in regards to trauma and understanding trauma. So the first question is it normal to feel more like a dream? Like if your memories feel more like a dream and it contains like bits and pieces of the memory. This is actually very normal. When we go through a traumatic situation, a lot of different parts of our brains kind of like shut down because nothing matters in that moment except survival. So the survival response is active, and what our body and our brain are doing is just trying to help us survive that situation. So small details are not going to be really important. When people go through traumatic experiences, a lot of the times they remember memories like this with this like fog or dream-like state, and that's due to dissociation. A lot of the times the body dissociates, meaning like it detaches from the body so that it doesn't feel the pain that it's enduring in that moment. So a lot of people who have experienced trauma have this out of body like experience, and sometimes they even find like safe places outside of their memory to go to. This is a very normal and actually adaptive response that the body does to try to protect us so that the full pain of the experience is not captured. So sometimes even though we're remembering that experience, it might feel like that because that's how the memory was stored. Our body reacts in a very different way when it's going through a traumatic situation than when it's just going through like simple daily tasks or normal tasks that are safe. The second question is, do you think people telling you to get over it actually makes it harder to get over it? The answer is absolutely. I mean, if get over it worked, we would all probably have gotten over things, right? That's not how it works. A lot of the times people mean well when they give that advice because they see us suffering. And sometimes it's actually to avoid accountability, right? Like if you get over it, then I don't have to be accountable to what I did to you, for what I did to you. But what ends up happening is that this actually creates an internal conflict because there actually is a reason why we haven't been able to get over things that is out of our control, right? If we wanted to, like, we would have gotten over things if it was up to us. The fact that we want to and we haven't is because this isn't up to us. What often happens is that our body creates protective responses, and oftentimes what our body wants to do is protect us from the same thing happening to us ever again. So a lot of the times we develop triggers to try to protect us from the same things that happened to us in the past so that they don't happen again in the future. So we become very sensitive to things that trigger our responses, and this is not up to us. So when somebody tells us just get over it, it creates an internal conflict because our body cannot get over it. So the most that we fight it, instead of accept it and try to understand it, the body gets upset at like, hey, like I'm here trying to protect you and you're here trying to dismiss me, and it just doesn't feel good. Why would you try to protect or dismiss this part that is trying to protect you? And the body reacts and the person shuts down, and it just creates this inner conflict of like, I should get over it and I can't get over it, okay? The best way to get over that is trying to give space to this and understanding that we can't just get over things that way, and just asking more questions like, what is this part of me protecting? What is prompting this response? What triggers am I around when this happens? Do I notice them? Do I not notice them? Are there situations that feel similar, right? Or maybe it can be like around like things that people say, things that people do, the way that certain people look, certain situations, you know? We start to understand more in terms of patterns. What are we noticing when these responses show up? so that we can try to understand what's going on with us better. But always with a lot of patience, a lot of understanding, and avoiding self-judgment, which is what other people do, right? Like they judge our responses, and that just triggers things worse. Okay, I went to therapy and still have PTSD. What else can I do? One of the things to understand about PTSD is that it's incomplete memories trying to complete, right? So when we go through a traumatic incident, like parts of our brain that process memories are not active. So that part is shut down and our memory isn't able to complete, okay? So when we experience PTSD symptoms, that's what it's actually happening. Now, in order for those symptoms to go away, it's very important to work with the body. So I would highly recommend going to a therapist that does somatic approaches and is trauma informed. And obviously, like working with a psychiatrist is actually helpful. A lot of the times that the symptoms don't necessarily go away completely, but you have the tools of knowing how to manage them, and you can really get to a place where those symptoms are really minimized. The other question is, can you overdose on trauma information? And do you sometimes just need a break? Yes. So when we are receiving information, we can get overwhelmed with information, especially if we're constantly getting exposed to it. So we just need space for that information to integrate and to settle. So yes, like I always recommend people take a break either from therapy or from consuming too much material, right? Because if you're reading, if you're listening to videos, if you're following people on Instagram or other social media to learn more about what's going on with you, it could be overwhelming and the information can never really have time to settle. So just allow yourself breaks. If you're going to therapy, maybe consider or talk to your therapist about like doing therapy less often. If you feel like you have gotten to a place where you're able to manage your symptoms, maybe like even a break, considering even a break from therapy would be good, but that's always something that you need to talk to your therapist about. I hate being touched by anyone, even people I like. What is wrong with me? First of all, I just want to say that there's nothing wrong with you. When we have developed a low tolerance for touch, it's because probably touch was never safe in the first place or wasn't safe before, okay? So what our body did was, in order to protect us from that unsafety, it developed a very protective mechanism of rejecting touch as a way to keep us safe. So there is actually like nothing wrong with you. And this is a beautiful way that your body tries to protect you. It sometimes forget that things are safe now. And so not because you know logically, does it mean that your body just understands that you're safe now. So that is a process of just learning to be safe in your body again. And it's a process that takes some time. And it's a process that needs a lot of patience, nurturing, and safe people around. Good ways of working through trauma, right? Like tingling or numbness out of limbs when you experience it. So this, I'm getting from that question, I'm getting the idea that people experience like symptoms in their body when they like body sensations, okay? So when I work with people with body sensations, to me, it always talks about things that have not been fully processed. So working with a trauma-informed professional who does somatic approaches is ideal. There's different tools online that we can do, but they never really quite get us to where like somatic approaches do, because when we heal in relationships, we have somebody to guide us through the process, which really makes a difference in our process. If you can't, there's books, I'm gonna try to link it here, but there's a book by Peter Levine that has a lot of different somatic approaches that can help you. However, I want to make sure that people understand that we need to be very gentle with these, because sometimes they can be triggering and dysregulating, and if they are, if we're by ourselves, we might become scared by it. This is why sometimes like it's better to work with a professional if we can, so that we understand that process as it happens, and somebody's there to actually reassure us that it's okay and we're gonna get through it and make sense of it. Do you truly ever get over trauma? Here's the thing. I hear and I have used the word healed a lot. Now, I think that sometimes that sets the unrealistic expectation of a goal of where we're never going to experience hard or difficult emotions and we're always going to have things together. And that can be very unrealistic. The way that I describe healing from trauma to my clients is that it's a process which gets easier over time. What does that mean? Like, at the beginning of therapy, right? You didn't have the tools, understanding, and you had a lot of judgment. So maybe like 6 months after, you're still doing the same behaviors, you're still experiencing a lot of the same sensations, but you are now aware of what's going on. That is progress. And that's how progress happens. It's not linear. And sometimes we might experience regression. I can tell you that healing looks very different for everyone. Progress, though, it's very possible. And I can tell you that we can get to a point when we feel really in control of our symptoms. We know what to do when they show up, and they're not as intense when we treat it with the right approaches. We are human beings though, so we will always experience certain like emotions, and that is just part of being alive. It's not a bad thing. It's just part of being human. And the last question that I'll cover is, what if your family never acknowledges your trauma? Having a family who never acknowledges what happened can be very hurtful. And this is also a lot about understanding that a lot of families grow up in the same dynamic, so they learn to normalize a lot of what happens. There's usually one person in the family who won't settle for the family dynamic, and they're usually the ones who are seen as the odd ones, right? Or they're usually seen as the ones that are too sensitive, or they exaggerate, or they just don't get it. And when you have a lot of family members who do this, it can start to feel really real. Like they're like maybe they're right? Like maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I am like too much. Maybe like I'm exaggerating. The best I can tell you is that this is about learning a process of just accepting that not everyone will validate you, but learning to validate ourselves and trying to find people who validate our experience. We will always have that wound there of like not having our trauma validated by the people who are closest to us, possibly. But that's something that with time, validating our own experiences and having other people validate it, it will feel less strong. There are some people who have learned to just kind of like accept that will never come from their family, and for some people it's more difficult to accept it. So everyone's journey is different and everybody's experiences looks different. Okay, that's all the questions for now. Let me know if you like this Q&A. Please, if you have more questions that you like, if you want me to do another Q&A, like just send the questions on Instagram. I'm gonna leave my handle there. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'm doing like weekly videos so that I can give you more information and show you why your responses around trauma make sense. Thank you and have a good night. Bye.